Ladies and gentlemen, there is a major problem in the world today. It's not people disagreeing with one another, it's that they can't disagree agreeably, civilly, and most importantly, persuasively. I would like to welcome back one of my personal favorite guest speakers, Bob Burg, the author of the best selling Go Giver series. Bob has been showing entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals how to communicate their value and accelerate business growth for over 30 years. He packs his valuable insight, genuine demeanor, and thoughtful advice into his books, one of which has sold for over 1 million copies. Bob says you can get the results you want while making the other person feel genuinely good about themselves, about the situation, and about you. Today, Bob is here to show us that we can better communicate with one another. Bob, welcome back to the Define Success podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Can you start from the beginning? So, we interviewed you about a year and a half ago, talked about the Go Giver mindset and everything you stand for with Go Giver. Can you tell us back to where this started at the beginning? What was the mindset that you adapted Go Giver and how you started this movement?
Well, I mean, really, it began just by being born to a couple of great people, born and raised to great parents who set that, who set that premise for me, really, and demonstrated that by how they lived. And I know my co-author John David Mann says the same thing about his parents.
Mm-hmm.
So both co-authors were fortunate in that way. As I got older and got into business, I saw people doing things the right way, what I felt maybe was the wrong way, and saw different results of each. And it seemed to me that aside from just being the right way to live life, that living life as a go-giver, which simply means that you understand that by taking the focus off yourself and placing the focus on others, that it's actually, again, not only a fulfilling way of living life and conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. Because when you really think about it, uh, nobody's going to do business with you because you have a quota to meet,
Yeah.
or because you need the money, or you want to do the business, or even just because you're a nice person. People are going to do business with you, work with you, be in relationship with you, follow you if you're a leader, because they believe that they're going to benefit by doing so, which makes absolute sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that person who can move their focus off of themselves and place it on serving others, on discovering what the other person needs, wants, desires, on being focused on helping others solve their problems, being focused on helping other people move closer to happiness. When you're like that, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you, and it really creates an entire benevolent context for success. So that's, really what we mean by go giver. And what I found was it's those people who were the most sustainably successful in
Mm-hmm.
business as well as personal life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think too many people get caught up with their own personal gain out of things. And you work with a lot of salespeople and have a lot of great sales advice. And it's prominent in sales. People are looking to pay off their bills and create financial freedom for themselves. But hey, how can we look at it too? How can I help someone else? How can I bring more value?
Well, the key is if you want financial success, you're only going to get it by helping others.
Yeah.
You're right, because again, they're not buying for your sake; they're
Mm-hmm.
buying for theirs. And I remember Zig Ziglar, who was, he was big way before you were on the scene, and so forth. I'm 65, so that was right in my heyday of selling. But Zig's most famous saying was, "You can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want."
Mm.
And that's a beautiful saying, and it's very true, especially when we're talking about a free market based economy, where when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else, right? So how are you going to have people do business with you? It's not by you focusing on yourself and paying off your debt and buying your car of your dreams or your home of your dreams or whatever. I mean, that's all. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's wonderful, but that's not why they're doing business with you.
Right. Yep,
They're doing
absolutely.
business with you because they believe you can help them. And that's the beauty of a free market environment.
Definitely. So we're here today to talk about influence, talk about better conversations, debates, all that stuff. You hear the word influence a lot. A lot of people think of influencers on social media, whether it's
Right.
Instagram. You hear about maybe when you're growing up, there's a bad influence around you, whether it's like
Sure.
a
Hmm.
friend or anything of that sort. What do you see influence as? What is influence really?
Yeah. So when we say influence, We would define, I guess, let's do this on a very, very basic level. We can define influence as the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action,
Mm,
usually within the context of a specific goal. That is, by definition, that's influence.
yeah.
Now, that's its definition, Matt. It's not its essence. The essence of influence is pull. Pull as opposed to push, as in the
Mhm.
old saying, how far can you push a rope? And the answer is not very far, well, at least not very fast or very
Mhm.
effectively, right? Which is why great influencers, what John and I call genuine influencers, don't push. You never hear people saying, wow, that Tom or that Nancy, she is so influential. She has a lot of push
Yeah.
with people. No,
Mhm.
she's influential. She has a lot of pull
Cool. Mhm.
with people, right? That's what influence is. It's pull. It's an attraction, right?
Yeah.
Great influencers attract people first to themselves and only then to their ideas. Now, how do they do that? How does this pull manifest itself? Well, for this, the genuine influencer really understands on both a intellectual and a heart level. They understand what I believe was the underlying premise of Dale Carnegie's classic How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this is where he wrote that ultimately people do things for their reasons, not our reasons, right? So
Mhm.
the great influencer, the genuine influencer, always questions themselves to make sure their focus is correct. So I believe we need to be internally motivated, but outwardly focused. So
Mhm.
questions a genuine influencer ask themselves to make sure they're facing the right direction might be, how does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their goals,
Yeah.
right? With
Mhm.
their needs, their wants, their desires, their values, right? How does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with their getting what they want, right?
Mhm.
How does it again move them closer to happiness? How does it solve a problem for them? How does it tie in to it, right? And so when we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, um, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another human
Mhm.
being into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a whole lot closer to earning that person's commitment, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to depend on some type of compliance, right? Compliance is push. It's threat, right? You'll be fired if you don't do this, or it's my way or the highway, or it's uh, does that ever work? Well, it can in certain limited circumstances, but it's not sustainable,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So, compliance is just, that's push. Commitment, earning commitment is pull. One of my great mentors, her name is Dondi Scumaci, a wonderful leadership authority. She works with teams and companies all over the world. And I love what she says about this. She says, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to influence, she says, compliance will never take you where commitment can go.
That's great.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very good. And you're absolutely right. I think the first step is to buy in yourself, to ask yourself those important questions that you're going
Mm,
over and just seeing if
very much.
you, yeah, if you have that personal conviction to even pull someone to where they're going. And all these ideas sound amazing, but I think a lot of people these days are very hesitant to because they feel like they're being sold different things and people are just hard to trust others. So
Sure.
how can we get across being genuine to other people? You talk about the 5 secrets of genuine influence. Maybe this ties in to the next topic here perfectly. But when you're trying to pull someone, you're trying to genuinely influence them. How do you come across as being genuine, come across as being trying to help them and not just pushing them into something?
Well, I think it begins first with a genuine interest in them,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's hard to fake on a sustainable level. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people who can do it. They're called con artists, and they can
Mm-hmm.
be very, very good at it. But it's difficult, and and again, it's not very sustainable. If somebody wants their both their reputation and their career and their relationships to really be positive and uplifting and to feel good about themselves, they've got to be that genuine, honest, trustworthy, worthy of being trusted person. So I think it really does begin with that genuine interest in that other person, and that comes across. The 5 principles, the 5 what we call secrets of genuine influence. So it's not a secret. We kind of say secret because we don't want it to be a secret.
Right.
We want everybody to know these. That's what kind of helps you do this in a way that allows you to be persuasive. And again, persuasion is the opposite of manipulation, right? Because influence is that ability to move a person or a person. Well, you can do it 2 ways. You can do it through manipulating another person, right? Which is all about yourself, right? The manipulator doesn't really care about the other person. It's all about them. They don't necessarily want to hurt the other person, but if that's what it takes to get their way, well, they'll do it. That's manipulation. That's not a good thing. Then there's persuasion. Persuasion basically means that you are helping that person to make a decision that is in their best interest. Now, it's in yours too. And that's the neat thing.
Yeah.
Because when we persuade correctly, it means everybody builds, everyone advances. And that's how life gets better for all. Right? And so the 5 secrets, I'll call them the 5 non-secrets, is how we go about and do that. We can discuss those if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So the first one is all about mastering your emotions. That's what we say it is. Master your own emotions. The sages said, who is the mighty person? And answered, that person who can control their own emotions and make of an enemy or of a potential enemy a friend. This is really where it all begins, because when you think about it, it's only when we're in control of ourselves, when we're the boss of ourselves and control of our own emotions, that we're even in a position to take a potentially negative person or difficult person or situation and turn it into a win for everyone involved. And we all know how much we respect that person who doesn't matter what's going on around them, they just seem to have it under control. They're calm and they're confident and they're and when we can do that, we're very proud of ourselves, as we should be. But how often do we, allow ourselves, based on what someone else says or does, do we allow ourselves to feel, victimized or angry or helpless or whatever? And we say or do that very thing that not only is not productive in terms of our attaining the results we want, it's absolutely counterproductive. Now, if we know better, which we all do, if we know better, why do we do it? Well, because we're human beings. And as human beings, we are emotional creatures. And, we like to think we're logical. And to a certain extent, of course, we are. But we're pretty emotion-based as human beings. Right. We make major decisions based on emotion, and we back up those emotion-based decisions with logic. We rationalize, which, if you break the word up in 2, it simply means we tell ourselves rational lies. And we do that to justify that emotion-based decision, or doing a thing that we really afterwards, in retrospect, know that we kind of blew it, that we really didn't, weren't our best selves and weren't in control of our, right? So please understand, though, in no way are we saying that, are we recommending that you forego your emotions or deny your emotions. First of all, it's contrary to human nature. You couldn't sustain doing that, but there's no reason to do that either. Emotions are a wonderful part of life. They bring us joy. They make life worthwhile, right? No, have your emotions. Just make sure you are the master of your emotions, as opposed to your emotions being the master of you.
That's good.
Again, referring back to my friend and mentor, Dondi, she says, by all means, take your emotions along for the ride, but make sure you are driving the car.
That's very good. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you want to continue? Keep going.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the next principle, we'll call them principles instead of secrets. The next principle is step into the other person's shoes, or what we also call understand the clash of belief systems. Right? We say step into the other person's shoes. It sounds almost, we always hear that, right? Step into their shoes. It sounds pretty easy to do until you think about it. Maybe it's not. After all, most of us have different sized feet. So
Absolutely.
literally, we can't step into their shoes. Figuratively, we can't step into their heads and their minds because we're not them.
Hmm.
We don't know what they're thinking. We don't come from the same necessarily background, thought processes. What is a belief? And this is where we understand the clash of beliefs. So what's a belief? Well, first, a belief is a subjective truth. Okay. When someone says that's my truth, it's their belief. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a subjective truth. It's the truth as you or I or someone understands the truth to be. Now, sometimes one's truth is also the truth,
Hmm.
but often it isn't.
Yeah.
Okay. It's simply a belief. Now, our belief, but it's how we see the world. It's our truth. It's how we see it. This is not always very productive. Now, our belief system is a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, cultural mores. Uh, it's now. Here's the thing, though. It's pretty much etched in stone by the time we're a little more than toddlers, and everything after that just adds to that basic set of beliefs. So most of us, we grow up and we live our lives really subject, if you will, to what I call an unconscious operating system.
Yeah.
Thinking that we're making choices out of strength and thought when really we're operating within if you remember the original Matrix movie,
Hmm.
right? Where, where they were controlled by machines. Well, we're controlled by our own beliefs that were handed to us long before, by both, by our parents, our society, our schools, our, whatever, long before we were able to consciously check our premises and ask, well, why is this true? Should I believe this? How did that person learn it? How did that person learn it from, what I'm saying? And so forth. But here's the thing. Not only do we operate from a certain set of beliefs, which skew our view of the world, so does the other person.
Hmm.
But as human beings, we tend to think that everybody sees the world basically the same way we see it.
Absolutely.
And they don't. But that's why you hear people say, oh, well, nobody likes that. Well, that's not necessarily true. You
Hmm.
don't, or I don't, but that doesn't mean that everybody doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Or I would never speak that way to someone. Well, no, you wouldn't, or I wouldn't, but other people would, right?
Hmm.
And so, but because we think that people understand, basically see the world the same way, that's how misunderstandings occur.
Hmm.
Most conflict is simply two people arguing a certain point, thinking that they're looking at it from the same premise when they're really not.
Yeah.
So this is where stepping into their shoes comes into play. The only way to do this is by asking questions
Hmm.
and actually listening. Right? Sounds
Yeah.
so simple, and yet it's so difficult sometimes. But it's listening not just with our ears, which is that surface listening most of us do while we're waiting our turn to speak, but listening with our eyes,
Yeah.
with our bodies, with our posture, as John coined the phrase, with the back of your neck, right? Putting every ounce of your being into listening in order to, as Dr. Stephen Covey in Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, really listening to understand,
Hmm.
right? And so when we do this and we continue, we clarify and we respectfully ask them what they mean by this, or now we're able to step into their shoes. We can kind of understand the world from where we may not understand in terms of agreeing with it or relating to it. That's not the issue, but we're understanding where they're coming from.
Yeah.
See, when we say the understand the clash of belief systems, you don't have to understand their belief system. They probably don't understand their belief system. It's basically very unconscious for all of us. Okay.
Hmm.
It's understanding that there are two different belief systems at work.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's the key.
this is a big one, especially today because a lot of people get so stuck in their beliefs. And like you said, like these are often passed down from us. I was reading a book recently that was like, we were told where to go to school, what religion we are, what language we're going to speak. Like a lot of things that we grew up with were not even our decisions, but now they become our beliefs because they're just passed down generation after
Absolutely.
generation.
Yeah.
And people get so ingrained in these beliefs and they now get into debates with people. And all
Sure.
of a sudden, someone's like, "Oh, I have a different belief than you." Like, hold on, what's going on? Like, we can't disagree on this. I don't know how to respond to that. And I think the biggest result in debates now is people don't really care to prove someone else wrong. All they want to do is prove themselves right. Like you see in the political sphere, like if someone's on the right, someone's on the left, they don't care to convert someone to their side. They just want to say, I'm correct. I'm right. I want to show you that I'm the one that's has the correct belief right now. So it's all interesting because it's always just so much back and forth because people just get so ingrained in their beliefs and they don't have that
Yeah.
genuine listening anymore and
Well, exactly.
asking questions.
Well, you might recall in the Go Giver Influencer, which was the fourth book in the series, the one in which these principles are
Yeah.
from, the two characters, the two protagonists, Jillian and Jackson, they both, were trying to work on a business deal with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually each had what the other wanted. It should have been a match made in heaven, but they both came at it from their own belief systems,
Yeah.
absolutely oblivious to the belief systems of the other person, that
Mm-hmm.
every time they met with each other, it just they got further and further apart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen if either of
Mm-hmm.
them had said to themselves, okay, she or he's seeing it from a way that I'm not, but what are they thinking? Well,
Mm-hmm.
how can I find out what they're thinking? Well, I could ask questions.
Yep. It's big.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really and it's the same in politics. If you're
Mm-hmm.
having I used to say that in politics, it used to be, I'm right, you're wrong, which was not good, but it was workable because at least you'd try to persuade someone if you didn't agree, if you just felt you were right and they were wrong. Now it's, I'm right, you're evil.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's
Exactly.
almost as though dialogue has stopped, because why bother when someone's evil? So now
Yeah.
it's just a matter of yelling and screaming at them and calling them names. And as you said, just saying that you're right, and that's it. You're not a human being because you disagree with me. Uh,
Yeah.
where does that get anybody?
Nowhere. Just
Right.
too much discontent in the country. Yeah.
Mhm,
It's
mhm,
a bad
mhm.
place to be in. Bob, you say that there's one motivating factor by every single person on earth. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, and this is something I learned from another mentor of mine, Harry Brown, and that one motivating factor is happiness. Everyone seeks happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, that's what everyone seeks. Now, how do we define happiness? Because, right, we could look at happiness as a whole different ways, a bunch of ways. People say, no, that's not all. I don't care. I'd rather be there. But so, what is happiness? Well, again, on a basic level, in the definition that Harry used, which is right out of the dictionary, is the mental feeling of well-being. Okay, that's great definition.
Yeah.
When you think about it, that is what we seek. Everything we do is in order to attain that mental feeling of well-being. There's nothing someone's going to intentionally do that they don't believe is going to bring them closer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we also have to understand that, and was his second point after everyone seeks happiness. The second point is that happiness is relative, right?
Yeah.
We all understand happiness differently. What would bring one person happiness would absolutely make someone else unhappy or miserable or have no effect at all,
For sure.
right? So we
Mm-hmm.
all see happiness different. Then the third aspect of that is that resources are limited. Now, that's not to say we live in I don't want that to be misunderstood as a lack of a lack mentality. That's not what I mean at all. We live in an abundant universe, but in terms of certain elements of life, yeah, the resources are limited. We all have a limited amount of time, right? We all have a limited amount of money. Now, some have more, but they're still limited. Okay, so we have a limited amount of energy. We have a limited amount of knowledge. We have a limited amount of bunch of things. So what this means, and what Harry was teaching, was that every decision someone makes, now this is again, you typically on an unconscious level, right? Because we make thousands and thousands of decisions every day, from whether or not to brush our teeth to, buying a home or whatever it happens to be. And so every one of these decisions is based on, does that person believe it will move them closer to happiness based on how they understand happiness and within the limited amount of choices, right, they believe they have.
Mm-hmm.
That is the motivating factor. So what we need to understand is when we're looking to persuade another person to think a certain way that's different or act a different way or whatever, we have to understand that their decision to do that is always going to be based on that desire for happiness, that
Yeah.
mental feeling of well-being.
Mm-hmm. It's very good. I love that. It's definitely can see how that's shared across everyone. Everyone wants to
Sure.
achieve happiness, so it's big. Bob, when you think about success, a lot of people, like you mentioned, they're always thinking about what's in it for them: the money, the cars, the fame, all that stuff. For you, you take a very different approach, but a very valid and a very approach that people need to think about more of: being a go-giver, of influencing more people, helping more people out. So I want to ask you, how do you define the word success? How does that look differently for you than other people?
Sure. And remember, when you say that, other people are self-interested or whatever, so am I. We all are.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all are.
Hmm.
And so, but again, self-interested doesn't have to mean that you're, evil or bad or wanting to hurt someone else.
True.
Again, the way, if you want to attain those things you want, you've got to find a way to help other people attain those things they want. Then you'll get
Hmm.
more of what you want. So let's define success, but first let's go a tiny bit, if we can, deeper into happiness, because this is gonna, I think, also gonna work into with success.
Yeah.
Remember, I said that Harry used the dictionary definition was the mental feeling of well-being.
Hmm.
So I take success, the definition, a tiny bit of happiness, a little bit deeper, and that is a genuine and ongoing feeling of joy and peace of mind, the result of living congruently with your values.
That's
Okay.
great.
So if you're doing that, you're probably happy. So
Yeah.
now, what is success? I would define success as a genuine feeling of happiness based on having done one's best to live up to their potential.
Beautiful.
To me, that's success.
Mhm. That's an amazing definition right there. I love that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Bob, one more question before we let you go, but can you please, you have the Daily Impact, you have the books. Can you please tell people how they can reach you after listening to this?
Sure. And by the way, the third, fourth, and fifth secrets, the third one was, just very quickly, was to set the proper frame. The frame is the foundation from which everything else takes place. The fourth is communicate with tact and empathy. Tact is the language of strength, right? And then fifth is let go of having to be right. Not that you don't want to be right, but let go of that emotional attachment to
Yeah.
having to be right. Okay. And when you do that, what happens is you first place yourself into the mode of being able to learn more, as opposed to the person whose life's philosophy seems to be, my mind's made up, don't confuse me with the facts. But also, when you let go of having to be right, the other person can sense it,
Hmm.
and they know you're not just looking to be right or trying to make them wrong, but you're looking for the truth.
Yeah.
And when
Amazing.
that's the case, they're much more likely to let down their defenses and do the same thing.
Yeah. Those are
Now,
great.
and to reach me, just Burg, BURG.com. I'm a simple guy, so just my last name, Burg.
Good.
Yeah. And while there, people can subscribe to the Daily Impact, or they can check out, they can read a free chapter of any of the books to see if they like it.
Amazing. Thank you for that. All right. Well, my last question for you is, for anyone that's listening to this that wants to achieve success in their life, but they feel lost, they need some guidance on how to get there. What is one piece of advice you would leave that person with?
Well, the first thing is to really work at discovering what you want to do, what drives you, what really moves you. Now, that alone, just doing what you love, isn't enough to be successful. There's that old saying, just do what you love and the money will follow. There's some truth to it, but it's not completely true.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, do what you love by all means. If you can possibly do that, by all means, do what you're passionate about, do what you love. But and what you're good at. Okay. But you've got to be able to connect that with a marketplace that is willing to buy what it is that you do.
Hmm.
So whether that's creating a marketplace or tapping into one that's already there. So the first thing is to really just decide, but it starts with deciding what jazzes you up, what you just love to do, what you just can't wait to go to sleep at night, because you're closer to getting up in the morning the next day to go do what you want to do. That,
Yeah.
first look for that. Now, by the way, if you can't find that at first, Don't put pressure on yourself to think you have to. Keep doing what you're doing right now, the very best you can, while you're deciding exactly what you want to do. There's a book. It was written in 1910. They've done a retro version. It's called The Science of Getting Rich
Oh,
by
wow.
Wallace D. Wattles, 1910. And he gives that great advice. He shows what he calls the certain way to go about to attain success, which is putting everything, your heart and soul, into doing everything you're doing right in front of you, right? At the same time, you can still be thinking about what you really, really want to do. Now,
Hmm.
once you know what that is, now start tapping into the people who've been there and done that and have written about it, do videos on it, do teachings on, whatever. Learn from those who've been where you want to be,
Yep.
right? Cut the learning curve. Don't
Hmm.
reinvent the wheel. Tap into the wheel that's been invented and then take action on it. Stay consistent and persistent, knowing that, as my friends Richard Andrea Waltz and Richard Fenton, who wrote the great book Go for No, and now a new book, When They Say No. As I said, yes is the destination, no is how you get there.
Hmm.
Right. And
Absolutely.
so realize that that's just part of it, and have the belief in yourself, the belief in what you're doing, the belief in the value you're bringing to others, to be able to really stay with it and make yourself 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and you'll be on your way. There's plenty of time, but start the process now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great advice right there, Bob. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all your time, all your value sharing with us today. So thank you so much for joining the podcast again.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.